Hi, it's Jo and Steve from Freshagenda, and we're here with a weekly update. And Steve, we're looking at the same old things in a way. EU milk supply continues to be one that we're watching fairly carefully at the moment, and it's really in the balance.
Yeah, I guess the latest data that's come out and published, the weekly data we track, France and Germany numbers have kicked up sharply. But what that's not taking account is the stuff we've been looking at earlier today, which is the more here and now pasture growth indicators. France and Germany look okay in the data. Ireland, Poland, UK, not so good. I mean, they're still seeing solid declines in growth. But what these numbers here that we're seeing on the chart, the France and Germany weekly data, doesn't pick up what's happening
right now,
and that's got a lot worse.
Yes.
The big risk for Europe is with no surplus forage now, they head into winter, they've got nothing to store.
That's right.
So we could see some big declines.
And particularly critical in Ireland. We're seeing a lot discussed about that. And the other, I suppose, longer term issue that we're just seeing this week, there's been discussion about hard or soft Brexit in the UK. And there's obviously some implications for dairy and particularly for cheese trade.
In the numbers we've got up now, you can see there's a two-way impact here. The UK heavily dependent on Europe for its cheese, for a large part of its cheese supply. And then you look across at a couple of the major exporters in the EU who depend on that big market for important sales. So how that settles down, and it's heading towards more the soft Brexit approach from May, who may not be Prime Minister for very long based on...
May not have a cabinet left in another week.
Yeah, so whether that ends up being the scenario that they take to the EU and whether the EU agrees with that and the rest of it around that, a long way to go yet.
Yes, a lot of uncertainty. And then across the Atlantic, turning to the US, it's a real story of export boom and bust for the poor old US dairy industry at the moment, isn't it? The US dairy exporters must be tearing their hair out.
Yeah, they've had some recent really good numbers that are probably a sign of getting stuff out the door before some of the doors close.
That's right.
Or get tighter. So activity is activity building, but it would slow down given what we've been hearing.
And those tariffs basically coming into effect in the last week. So that is starting to affect actual trade and orders, and we're seeing a bit of volatility returning to US cheese markets as a result.
Yeah, some very scary charts from the US market. Firstly, the cheese, cheddar chart, block cheese and barrel cheese, that prices have fallen drastically in the case of barrel. This is not about China, this is all about a slowdown in Mexico business, but it layers on top of an already well-stocked supply chain in the US. And with production moving away from, it seems, mozzarella to barrel product form, there's already too much of that, so that's why that's crashed. So it recovered, it's gone down again. It's creating some very interesting sawtooth effects on charts. Yeah,
and just turning to whey, obviously whey's more directed at the Chinese market, but obviously a byproduct of cheese as well. So they are related. Less direction there, a little bit of tightness in the internal market for whey. So that's sort of not hitting those prices as yet.
So that's a quick tour. Your chart of the week, Jo.
Yeah, the chart of the week is also focusing on the US. As you know, every week I choose a chart from our weekly Dairy Globe newsletter. And this week it's about US production, and it's the problem that is building in the US with fairly steady growth in milk production, fluid milk consumption declining. Where is the milk going to go as these export opportunities are getting harder for the US industry? So we're just seeing manufacturers start to divvy up that milk and put it where they can for the moment. Whey, as we can see there, has that production slowed a bit, so that's tightening up the market, but it'll be one to watch. Where does the milk go?
Yeah. And look, before we close, there's been a lot of talk now that there's an index out for dairy farms to look at. Not that we want to talk much about that, but here's one we prepared earlier. It's goodbye from us. See you next week.